I think, Deputy, I think the room you are in has a speaker. So you don't need to hear yourself. Because the minute you hear yourself, there's going to be echo. The room you are in has a speaker. Or it has other gadgets. So they must switch off their volumes when you speak. Can we test this now?
Okay, we'll switch off the mic and then we'll try her to speak again from our side.
Let's do that. It's preferably you can use earphones.
Okay. Good evening.
That's better.
Now?
Much better. We can hear you.
Seems not.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Hello, Deputy.
I think your microphone. No, is your microphone. I don't see it on the platform. Microphone. What did you microphone?
We can hear you now, eh?
Microphone. How to event for how join
They can't hear you, see. I'm a go over.
Exactly. Can you log out and log in again?
Good evening, everybody.
I did.
You did, but it's not reflecting.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening, Chair.
Members.
Evening. Public Protector and Deputy Public Protector, you're welcome. And honorable members, you're all welcome. We have a long evening today. We will start with the Public Protector and then followed by the Legal Aid Board. So we must be as thorough as we can, but be as business-like as we can, so that we can finish everything as quick as we can without compromising quality. We will immediately start with the Public Protector and the Deputy Public Protector. You are all welcome. We'll hand over to you to start briefing us about your budget and your APPs for this financial year 2020-2021. 2021-2022. Over to you, Public Protector. Can you unmute yourself?
Good evening, Chairperson, and good evening to the honorable members.
Evening.
Am I audible, Chairperson?
Yes, very audible.
Okay. Thank you so much, honorable members. I'm here with the Deputy Public Protector, Advocate Nqola, the CEO, Ms. Sibanyoni, the CFO, Ms. Yalekile Lusibane, and all the executive managers and the senior managers of Public Protector South Africa. I wish to first convey my office's deepest sympathy to you, honorable members, in respect of the recent passing of your colleague, Honorable Mufokeng, who was laid to rest in Gauteng late last month. I believe I speak for the entire Public Protector South Africa team when I say that based on our previous interactions, the late Honorable Mufokeng was a model parliamentarian who took her work of holding watchdog institutions such as the Public Protector South Africa to account very seriously, and that is how we will remember her. The document we are presenting here was finalized and tabled during the 2.5 months I was on leave. As you may have noticed, it was signed off by the Deputy Public Protector, Advocate Nqola, whilst acting as Public Protector. This and a lot of our work as an institution was concluded under her stewardship. I highlight this point because it demystifies the wrong notion that the Public Protector South Africa is a one-woman show or a fiefdom. We work as a team in all aspects of our work, including the investigations and the writing of the resultant reports. I would therefore like to thank Advocate Zalega for holding the fort with distinction and ensuring that the wheels keep turning in my absence. In the same breath, a word of gratitude must go to the staff who walked that journey alongside Advocate Zalega. The commitment is really appreciated. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce to you, honorable members, our new CEO, Ms. Thandi Sibanyoni, who joined this institution at the beginning of March 2021. Ms. Sibanyoni brings a wealth of public service experience, which extends over a period of 30 years, 20 years of which were in senior management. She is a seasoned bureaucrat who, for the past 14 years, served at the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, as a Deputy Director General responsible for various portfolios, including fraud investigations, internal audit, corporate services, as well as serving as Provincial Manager of SASSA in the Northern Cape. We thank the former acting CEO, Ms. Lusibane, who has since returned to her position as the Chief Financial Officer. Prior to Ms. Sibanyoni's appointment, Ms. Lusibane did superbly well in that 13-month period, during which we set a new record for ourselves with our first ever clean audit. Chairperson, honorable members, you would know the Public Protector mandate, which is a constitutional institution provided for in terms of Section 182 of the Constitution, whose mandate is to investigate any conduct in state affairs, in public administration, in any sphere of government that is alleged or suspected to be improper or to result in any impropriety or prejudice, to report on that conduct and to take appropriate remedial actions. You'd know that the Public Protector has additional powers and functions as prescribed by the Public Protector Act, and further, the Public Protector cannot investigate court decisions, and the Public Protector must be accessible to every person. So the additional mandate of the Public Protector, as I indicated, is maladministration mandate under the Public Protector Act, anti-corruption mandate, which is a shared enforcement of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, and sole agency enforcement of the Executive Members Ethics Code, and a safe haven for whistleblowers under the Protected Disclosures Act, and reviews the decisions of the National Home Builders Regulatory Council under the Housing Protection Measures Act, and resolving access to information complaints as provided for in the relevant legislation. Everything we do as the institution in the service of the South Africans and the public is informed by an elaborate plan, which we call the Public Protector Vision 2023. In essence, the vision is about taking the services of the office to the grassroots. It is underpinned by 8 pillars, which relate to enhancing access to our services, which will be in the form of approaching or engaging communities in the various languages of the understanding. And we are publishing various newsletters internally and externally in various languages. And we also have the newsletters in Braille so that we can reach all the communities. As well, we've increased our footprint because we have engagements with the Department of Justice to utilize various of their courts to make sure that our services are accessible. We have signed various MOUs with various institutions, and also further, we have made sure that we are there for those who are poor and marginalized, and also empowering the citizens so that they are well-versed and know their rights. I must indicate that we also persuade state organs to establish their internal mechanism or in-house complaints resolution matters, or in fact, units, so that they can be efficient. I mean, we know City of Joburg, City of Cape Town, the Department of Defense and Military Veterans and the Department of Human Settlements, they do have such internal complaints mechanisms. Also, we are working closely with the Department of Home Affairs, which also has a very strong internal complaints mechanism. So we would want at the end of the day to have people who should be equipped with the necessary know-how to help themselves and others in relation to service delivery related complaints. Coming back to what has brought us together today, there are two elephants in the room when we converged the leadership and management of Public Protector South Africa to plan our strategic and operational focus areas for 2021-2022. One was the effects of COVID-19 on our work, while the other was the reality that our budget allocation continues on a downward trend since the previous year. Both challenges threatened to derail our rollout of the Public Protector Vision 2023, and we had to work around them in order to remain on course. As a result of COVID-19, we have had to hold off on our traditional way of conducting outreach. In this regard, we have suspended the mobile office service through which we normally take services to the doorsteps of the downtrodden across all 44 districts and 8 metropolitan municipalities as part of the vision. On investigations, the budget cuts have impacted mostly on our compensation of employees' funds. Honorable members will note in the presentation, 60 million was reduced from our 2020-2021 budget. This year, we have seen 28.7 million reduction. We expect more cuts in the future. The nature of the impact is such that our already inadequate capacity will be rendered further insufficient. This will in turn affect the quality of our output and the speed at which we will resolve complaints, and we expect more complaints due to these austerity measures in various government departments and the challenges the public servants are facing. Given the governance issues that the country faces, coupled with the fact that Public Protector South Africa is among a few institutions that are expressly mentioned in Chapter 14 of the National Development Plan as having been entrusted with the mammoth task of rooting out corruption and related maladies across the public administration. This is an undesirable situation. Moreover, the NDP, which is essentially our national strategic plan, decree that such institutions should be appropriately funded and capacitated. Our mandate is now more crucial than ever before. We have to expand our resources to focus on mending the administrative gaps that are as a result of maladministration and more often lead to corruption. We are therefore an integral part of the fight against corruption. However, we are alive to the financial challenges that the entire government faces, and as such, we have to find innovative ways of ensuring that we adjust to the changing environment. Accordingly, in respect of the investigations, we have revised our performance targets. For instance, in 2019-20, we sought to produce 56 investigation reports. Now we are aiming for 50 reports. Previously, we aimed to finalize 100% of our early resolution, administrative justice and service delivery matters and good governance and integrity investigations within the set turnaround times. Now the target is 80%. On accessibility, we consolidated the targets under one high-level objective, which is to develop and implement an integrated access and stakeholder strategy. In addition, we will now rely heavily on community radio to reach the outlying areas where grassroots communities reside instead of engaging the people in person. It is our hope that this approach will help circumvent the grim realities of declining budget and the effects of COVID-19 so that we maintain the effective implementation of our constitutional mandate. We are hopeful about the future. We depend on the support of stakeholders, particularly Parliament, government, and the public. With this support, we will continue to be the voice of the voiceless grassroots communities and execute our mandate with the utmost integrity, without fear, favor, or prejudice. Chairperson, let me hand over to Ms. Sibanyoni, our Chief Executive Officer, to just take us through the strategic plan and our annual performance plan for 2021-2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Public Protector. Before you proceed, CEO,
Yes.
I would like to firstly express our appreciation for the word of condolences from the Office of the Public Protector. And also on our side, we would like to extend our condolences to yourself, Public Protector. We know that you lost your mother during this period. I did communicate on behalf of the committee to you and to express our condolences, but I felt that it is important that we must again officially communicate to you and to your family to express our condolences. We know that a mother is always a pillar of strength to all of us. Losing a mother is not taken lightly, but bear in mind that you are always in our thoughts during this difficult time. I would also like to formally welcome the new CEO, Ms. Sibanyoni. Welcome to this warm, engaging committee. We hope that we are going to have, I know that we are going to have fruitful engagements. You come highly recommended. We hope that you will not let us down. You are welcome. Thank you very much. You can proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, the Public Protector, Deputy Public Protector, and all the colleagues on this platform. Good evening. If you allow me, Honorable Chair, I will take the members through the work that we plan to do in the financial year 2021-2022 as reflected in our annual performance plan. I'll start by just jogging your memory with regards to our vision, which is empowered people and accountable public administration. Our mission is to protect all persons against administrative injustices, improve service delivery, and promote good governance in state affairs. We also have our purpose statement, which is to be a catalyst for change in pursuit of good governance. Our impact statement is to empower everyone at all levels of society to effectively engage organs of state about any injustice, service delivery failure, or improper conduct. We also aim to assist organs of state to establish and maintain efficient and effective governance and administration. We subscribe to the following principles: the principles of accountability, integrity, and responsiveness. We are also driven by the values of passion, Ubuntu, leadership, and efficiency. Our work is guided by the following outcomes, which are in line with our Vision 2023, ensuring that our PPSA services are accessible to everyone. We aim to successfully find resolutions to complaints lodged by our clients. We also strive to ensure a continued clean audit over the years. We also want to implement ICT systems to optimally support our business imperatives. If you allow, Chairperson, I'm gonna take the members, the honorable members, through our targets that we set for ourselves, starting with program 1, which is our administration program, where we have 2 targets. The first one, we started last year, as the PP mentioned, we obtained a clean audit report. We want to continue to maintain a clean audit status over the MTF period. The second indicator that we have as ourselves is a percentage of implementation of ICT infrastructure, which is critical for us to improve efficiency in our business processes. In the financial year 21-22, due to budget constraints, we cannot start with this project. However, in the year 2022-23, we want to roll out the case management application, which is an application that will be utilized by the people who want to lodge complaints with us, and to such an extent that they don't have to walk all the way to our offices or take transport to visit our offices. So that will happen in the year 2022-2023. Then I'll take you through our program 2, which is our core business. that deals with investigations, where we have 5 targets. And the first output indicator in that regard is the number of investigation reports we want to finalize. We aim in the current financial year to find resolution investigations that takes up to 6 months to finalize. We have service delivery matters that take up to 12 months. We have the good governance and integrity with what we normally refer to as GGI matters that take 24 months. But in some instances, the 24 months is extended to 36 months, depending on the complexity of the investigation at hand. And so we want to maintain that kind of performance over the MTEF period, where in each financial year, then we will make sure that we finalize 80% of those cases. The third output indicator that we have of ourselves is a percentage of 2 years and older cases finalized. And we intend to finalize 80% of these cases that are 2 years and older, except for the GGI investigations, as I mentioned, that those are normally very complex and they require an extended period of time to investigate. So we want to maintain this. And why we want to keep it at 80%, we're keeping it at 80% because I'm sure, Honorable Chairperson, you can appreciate that there'll be matters that are reported to our office just at the end of towards the end of the financial year. So we're making provision for those matters, because if we receive a matter, for example, on the 25th of March, it will be difficult for us to finalize it by the end of the financial year. However, we still want to finalize it within the given period, either 12 months, 24 months, or 6 months, depending on the category of that investigation. So the same applies as well to the cases that are up 82 years and older. Then that takes us to the fourth output indicator, which is investigation and finalization of systemic investigations or interventions. These are normally the investigations that emanate from a continuous range of similar complaints by different members of the public because of challenges with a particular service. In the current financial year, we want to finalize 1 systemic investigation. We also want to, over and above that, identify and investigate 2 other systemic investigations or interventions. So which means that we might start with the investigation or the interventions, but might not finalize them, but we want to at least have commenced by the end of the financial year with the investigation. And we want to finalize then 2 systemic investigations over the MTEF period. So 2 investigations for each year, for each financial year of the MTEF. The last one on investigations would be the number of bilateral meetings we want to hold with organs of state on systemic challenges. In the current financial year, we intend to have 10. It means over the MTEF, we will have 10 meetings per financial year to engage with the organs of state to discuss systemic challenges. And why we have these bilateral meetings is to make sure that once we identify systemic challenges, we don't have, in some instances, to go through an elaborate process to investigate, but we can immediately engage these organs of state with an intent to try and provide advice and to get commitment to make sure that they resolve those matters within the shortest period of time. And then the next slide talks to program 3, which is our stakeholder management program, where we have 1 target, and our output indicator is the number of activities executed in the implementation of integrated access and stakeholder management strategy. The strategy has been developed and approved, so we just have to implement. And this year we plan to execute 42 of these activities towards the implementation of our integrated access and stakeholder management strategy. And these are broken down into, we will have 36 radio interviews, we'll have 5 national events, and we also have 1 good governance week. And why the number is reduced, it's because of the pandemic that we are still going through. And we're hoping that these interventions will suffice for now, because we don't want to create super spreaders as well by having the normal outreach programs that we have. But in the next financial year and the subsequent year, we plan to have 245 of these. And this is on the assumption that the pandemic would be over. If not, we will go back and revise the numbers down. But if the pandemic is over, we want to activate then our outreach clinics that we normally do, and where we take services closer to the people and afford the people an opportunity to engage with us on issues that affect them as individuals. Honorable Chair, that concludes the program targets. May I, if you allow, hand over to the CFO to take us through our finances, which will cover our expenditure for the previous financial year, as well as the budget for the current financial year. Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. I'll hand over to the CFO, if you allow, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Good evening, Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee. I will be taking you through the budget versus expenditure for the previous financial year and the next MTF budget, as the CEO has indicated. In terms of our expenditure in the previous financial year, we have a 98% spending. We started off with a budget of 341.9 million, which was later reduced by 16.1 million by National Treasury. However, due to budget constraints that we had during the course of the year, we got assistance from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development with an additional budget of 30.5 million. As I indicated, we've spent 98% of our budget in the previous year, including the additional budget that we received towards the end of the financial year. And then in terms of our MTF allocation, the current year, we were supposed to receive a budget of 360.7 million. However, it was reduced by 28.7 million, as the PP indicated earlier. We currently sit with the revised budget of 331.8 million. In the next financial year, we're supposed to have a budget of 377.9 million. It was reduced by 37 million. It will be 340.9 million. And in the year after, we're supposed to have a budget of 364.5 million. It was reduced by 19.3 million. It will then be 345.1 million. In terms then of the breakdown of the budget, as indicated, the total revenue, I've spoken to it earlier, but as you can see, Chairperson and members, that the current year's budget is a 7% decline as compared to the previous year's budget. The next financial year's budget will be an increment of 3%, and the year after, 1%. In terms of our breakdown, you will see that a big chunk of our budget goes to compensation of employees, which in the current year is 251.8 million. Our goods and services amount to 76.7 million, of which contractual obligations are at 51.1 million. And then the budget that funds our APP is 1.1 million in the current year, and the operational costs amount to 24.4 million. Our capital expenditure at 3.3 million. And then in terms of the budget breakdown per program, our administration, which is program 1, sits with a budget of 135.3 million, of which compensation of employees is 63.9 million. Our goods and services, 68.096 million. That includes the contractual obligations, which I spoke to earlier. They are all under the administration component. Our capital expenditure as well sits under the administration at 3.3. And program 2, which is our investigations, sits with a budget of 181.7 million. And the compensation of employees in that program is amounting to 174.2 million, and the goods and services at 7.4 million. Our program 3, which is complaints and stakeholder management, has a budget of 14.7 million with compensation at 13.5, goods and services and at 1.1. Chairperson, if I may indicate our budget pressures and requests for additional funding, which they are not new. We have been presenting this to the committee as well as National Treasury. We require for funding of critical positions in the current year, 16.5 million for subject matter experts, where we need to outsource our investigations for technical expertise. We require 2 million in the current year, and in order for us to be able to access e-library for research while we do our investigations, we require 250,000 in the current year. And for security services at our provincial and regional offices, we require an amount of 6.1 million in the current year. We also require an electronic document management system, which is estimated at 1.5 million. We also have a need to upgrade our ICT infrastructure, which has aged, and we require an amount of 10 million to be able to refresh our ICT infrastructure system. So in the current year, the additional budget we're requiring is 36.4 million. In the year after, it's 26.3 million. And a year after that, it's 27.7 million. I must indicate, Chairperson, that the reason why there's a decline on the additional budget required in the outer years is as a result of the two requirements will be once-off costs as they are capital in nature. They will not be continuing in the rest of the financial years. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, PP, and over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. That is our presentation, and thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. As the Public Protector South Africa, we rely on your assistance and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was businesslike. Thank you very much. Let me note hands from members who would want to ask questions or make inputs. Are there any questions, members? Honorable Horn, Honorable Jele, Honorable Drachens, Honorable Nqola, Honorable Breitenbach, in that order. Honorable Horn.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to everyone. Chairperson, let me start off by asking, in respect of the very last slide and the funding needs that have been expressed there, one would expect that in some instances, like for example, the ICT infrastructure, unless it is on the verge of collapse, then of course, even though it is a funding need, it's not critical in nature. What, however, worries one is the funding needs in respect of security as set out there. So if we could be afforded information as to what is the current situation as to who is handling security at the public protector's offices and who's carrying the expense for that, it would be welcomed. Then, Chair, in respect of the IPP, it is noted that there was still a number of acting positions as set out in the IPP, acting executive manager investigations and acting executive manager corporate services and acting executive manager provincial investigations inland. Could we be apprised as to whether that has since changed? And in general, what is the vacancy amongst senior management level in the past, without going into the reasons as to why? One formed the opinion that there is a constant situation of senior management positions being vacant at the Office of the Public Protector. Then in terms of the performance indicators, Chair, there's one indicator that has been removed, and that is the one about ongoing engagements with ombudsman and organs of state, which had a target of 4 institutions which were to have been identified by 2025. And I would like to know why that specific indicator has been removed from the plan. Specifically, Chair, as one would think that our public protector, whilst being, I would want to say, as confirmed by a court, something more than a mere ombudsperson, definitely a jewel in our constitutional crown. The reality is that one can never work in an island. So if this is no longer the target, what is the formal way in which the Public Protector's Office foresee engagement with other similar institutions and organs of state, if it's not going to be through these engagements as set out in the APP? Then, Chair, regarding the financial pressures, as we've again learned of this evening, and which is nothing new, and which seemingly is not going away anytime soon, I would want to ask the Public Protector what, if anything, has been learned around specifically office needs and the needs for office space and permanent office space. During the pandemic, we know that the Public Protector was one of those institutions who were able to start functioning even when there were harsher lockdown measures. And seemingly, in terms of the general rules that applied at the time, not all personnel were able to return to the office. And more internationally, not only in South Africa, the report is that businesses realize that they can make do with less office space, and have some members of staff work remotely and make some, I want to say, revolving office space available for those who come in only on certain days of the week. So I would want the Public Protector to share with us any insights they've learned. And then in addition to that, I know in the Free State, at least just before the pandemic, they've moved offices. Whether there is a general trend that they are looking to downsize, or at least look into more cost-effective office space as part of managing the diminishing budget allocations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Jale.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good evening, colleagues, and also good evening to the Public Protector and the team. Chairperson, you have already indicated and sent our condolences also to our Public Protector, and thank you also for that. Let me just say, Chairperson, one, we appreciate the efforts that are coming from the Office of the Public Protector when it comes to the issues of spending on their targets. But on the very same breath, Chairperson, we really, in support of my colleague, we would really would like to see the Office of the Public Protector putting more effort in making sure that these acting positions are being filled, because it can really mess up or derail the progress and the good work that is done in that office. But I only have few questions, and it's not even questions, Chairperson. It's just I want the Office of the Public Protector, seeing that they have acknowledged that there are lots of restrictions when it comes to the movement for them to go outside and meet with the people in terms of the issues of service delivery. I just want to find out how far is the office with the issue of, there was some times back where they reported about the complaint drop boxes, which were to be installed at certain magistrate courts in different places around the country. Has that been accomplished? If you can get information on that one also. And then also on the issue of, I hear that because it was on the issue of the MOUs that they have. I think that one they have covered for now in their presentations. But if you can also get more information on the partnerships or on the integration of the stakeholder management strategy, the names possibly, if they have already has been a progress in that area, So if we can get even the names of those partnerships so that we know this is the time where we would love to make sure that to see more of those partnerships so that it can ease the weight and the burden as we are having problems of budget. I think they are now alive on the issue of we really don't have, the country is facing lots of problems when it comes to that area of finances budget. But I appreciate Chairperson the 98 spending on the side of their budget. I think I applaud them that they continually making us proud as a department, as an institution. I think I'll end there, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Nevo Trachem.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Good evening to everyone. And also thank you to the Public Protector's team. The previous member, Honorable Jele, did cover me with regard to the Dropbox, the comments, the boxes, but I wanted to add that it's not only at the magistrates, not only at the magistrates court, but also at the post office maybe, if it has done, so just a follow-up on that. And then many complaints with regard to COVID-related irregular expenditure. There's 10 senior investigators in the strategic plan it mentioned. So I would like to know what is the update on those investigations? How far have you come? And then the mobile referral applications. It was said that it would be concluded by the 31st of March. So I would like to know if that did happen, and were you able to assist with the complaints? And how did you promote it to make the public aware of that? And then have there been any public participation with regard to this? And then earlier, the Public Protector spoke about sharing information on radio and printing and braille. I'd like to applaud you for that, but that still leaves me out and the deaf community in the dark. So, because if you are on TV, maybe have a sign language interpreter or subtitles where people who are deaf can also get information from the Public Protector. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nqola.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, it has been a long day for us. Chair, there's something that concerns me with regard to the office use of the PPSA. I think ever since we've arrived for the 6th administration, there's been a perpetual report that the PPSA is in talks with the government institutions to solicit an available office space for the use of PPSA. I think, Chair, it has been a constant way of reporting. I don't know why is there no progress registered until today with regard to that matter, because in my view it is very important given the economic environment that we're operating in currently. They are too complaining about continuous budget cuts which was 16 million plus, there now there's 26 or 28 million plus, which has caused, in actual fact, some of the vacancies not to be filled. I want to check with that regard, Chair, that in their strategic session, have they not checked the possibility of having a revenue generation strategy? In that part of the resource the PPSA has must not solely depend on what the National Treasury offers and what the Department of Justice offers, but equally a revenue generation model that they are supposed to develop, maybe to help in some of the things for the operations of the office. I stand to believe, Chair, that the Auditor General's office has got a certain model of some kind that assists them a lot in terms of this kind of problems. Chair, there is an issue about security. I think, Chair, we must note this matter because they have been reporting it in actual fact. And it indeed is a threat, as they put it. It indeed is a threat to the work of the Public Protector South Africa. It poses a threat to the documentation they are able to collect and evidence. It poses a threat to their employ. So, Chair, maybe I would like us as the committee to see how best can we engage around this matter, because they have been reporting it, and they have been reporting incidents where I think in an office in Amtata there was an incident of robbery and all that. So I think we must take this matter serious, Chair. But I think for now I would like us to note, or maybe find a way on ourselves to see how best can assist. The implementation of the ICT infrastructure, which appears in both the annual performance plan and the presentation under 2021-2022 financial year. I'm not sure, Chair, if I get that. What do they mean when they say the implementation of the ICT infrastructure is not applicable in the financial year?
Honorable Nqola. Honorable Nqola.
There was a report that there is a collaboration of the chair.
Yes, I don't think that they were able to get your last question. I think we are back under the tree.
Sorry, Chair, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, I was saying, Chair, both in the presentation and in the APP, the implementation of the ICT infrastructure for financial year 2021-2022 is noted as not applicable. So if they can explain that, what do they mean when they say the implementation of the ICT infrastructure is not applicable in the year 2021-2022? The last of which, Chair, is in March, there was a report that there is a collaboration between PPSA and South African Human Rights Commission around the matters of the shutdown of institutions of higher learning by students. I take keen interest, Chair, when matters are involving young people. I take keen interest. So I want to check, Chair, how far have they gone with that kind of mediation? Because I believe the shutdown may have settled now, but the problems are perpetually going on and going on and going on. I believe that that kind of collaboration and mediation by the two entities, Chapter 9 institutions, would have made a greater difference. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Good evening, everybody. Chair, I'm largely covered by my colleagues. I have one additional question. If we can have an update on the situation with regards to the suspension of senior management. Is there any, of senior managers, is there any progress in that regard? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Dyantyi.
Enkosi Sihlalo, mandibulise nami also to appreciate the presentation from Team PPSA. Thank you very much for the presentation. I must say before I go to my questions, Chair, bapanze bandiguqula in the way they put this. I am in sync and I'm in love with a measurable outcomes, Chair. I think I like their purpose statement, that impact statement, and they're getting more sexy when it comes to and Opule, the way they put it, because I think they are going to make our oversight work very, very, very easy. So I really like that, because you can see, you can follow it, and they are quite measurable, instead of us getting this clutter of long visions and everything else. I thought I must just comment on that to say, one can see that when people are dealing with something, they always work on it. And it is coming across, at least from where I'm sitting, that there's a lot of thought that has been given around these issues. So that's really my first comment that I want to throw in to Public Protector and her team. As you know, Chair, I've got 3 standing questions. They are not changing, Zimile, for all of them. Because remember, they are coming to us, they are proposing us, but this is what they want to do, different from an annual report. And so from what they are proposing, my 3 questions, Chair, and it seems that they had a clue about my 3rd question, because they've already answered it even before I asked it. My first question, Public Protector, is in what you are presenting, in this annual performance plan that you are presenting to us, what in it represent a forward leap? What in it represent a forward leap? In other words, are you able to say to us, we're improving on this compared to the previous? You might have many of those. I've gone through it. Seem to have picked 1 or 2, but I think it's good if we get it from you. What is that in this APP, you are saying I'm taking this office to a next level? That's my first question. The second one is what I realized, but you have already answered before I asked, was that one is asking, what are you losing? What are you foregoing in this APP as a result of the impact of COVID, 1, and 2, as a result of a failure to spend? You've already dealt with some of that in relation to COVID. My last question, which seems to be an issue that you raised as well, because when you put a plan, and in this case, this implementation plan, you surely would have done what I call implementation risk assessment. You would have done that. My question, therefore, is what in the plan that you're putting forward to the National Assembly today through this committee, what are the capacity risks that are likely to stall your implementation? What are those capacity risks? That's really all I want to say, Chair, in addition to my comment about liking what I see. And it's going to make me dig more, but I like what I see. Sorry, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Honorable Dyantyi. I'm not sure whether it is because it is late at night. You have raised 2 issues which are related. In fact, 2 words which are interesting. We've talked about sexy and proposing.
It is in the nature of what you're putting forward.
Okay. No, over to you, PP, and your team.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, can I ask for 5 minutes just to agree with my team who's going to respond on what? Actually, 2 minutes. In that case.
Can we start at 6:30? It's 26 minutes past 6 now. Can we start at 6:30?
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
But the meeting is, who is the host?
Welcome back. Over to you, PP.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you so much for giving us indulgence. Chairperson, I will request the CEO to deal with all the issues relating to operations, HR related matters, and the CFO will deal with the issues of budgets. And the DPP will assist on the integrated stakeholder management strategy and issues relating to the collaboration with the Human Rights Commission. And from my side, Honorable Horn asked about dropping one of the targets, especially of collaborating with other ombudsman offices and institutions related to that. I would say, Honorable Horn, that is included in our integrated stakeholder strategy, so the Deputy Public Protector will address that. And then I will also indicate that on the issue of the sign language on TV, Honorable Druchan, we do normally most of our engagement with the public. We had several webinars as an institution. We definitely have a sign language interpreter on all our engagements. And on the issue of how we will make sure that going forward we operate as an institution, I think we have managed to re-engineer our operations. Honorable Dyantyi, you were asking post-COVID, because most of our team or our investigators, most of them are working from home, and they are able to do that because there's a rotation basis, and they are able to work remotely, and they are able to deliver. I think that will link up to the issues of accommodation and how we can save on the expenses relating to that. But then also I need to indicate that our forward leap, Honorable Dyantyi, is that Vision 2023, if we can be able to make sure that all state institutions have their own internal complaints mechanism or complaints units. We are not saying they should be having like your military ombudsman or your health ombudsman, but we are saying within the institutions, Department of Home Affairs, for instance, has a section which is led by a director who's responsible for receiving all the complaints from the public protector. For instance, if it relates to Home Affairs, we collate them, we then hand them over to Home Affairs to address those complaints. We just monitor the implementation. So that will help us to reduce a number of complaints, individual complaints. So as an institution, when we see that we have a lot of Home Affairs, we have a lot of, currently we have systemic investigations, which will also look into the City of Tshwane billing system, for instance, then we focus on the systemic investigations and recommend a solution or a remedy to unlock and make sure that there's no repetition of those complaints. And the forward looking is public servants to do their work and make sure that public protector is used as an office of last resort, not to say always we need to receive complaints, then approach the institution. But then again, what I'm worried about, and honorable members going forward, is the issue of the wage negotiations in the public service and the austerity measures which have been put there. There won't be any increase in that sphere. Currently, there is a challenge of service delivery in the public service. Public servants, most of the time, there's a lot of maladministration, I must say, and due delay to process any services. And as well, we have a lot of complaints as far as service delivery related matters are concerned. So that is a challenge, or that's a risk which I'm seeing, or we are seeing as an institution, that if then public servants are not being compensated or are not given that increase, and then that will have a ripple effect, or it will affect service delivery, and we will receive a lot of complaints as far as that is concerned. So, Honorable Chairperson, let me hand over to, actually, let me start handing over with the DPP to address the issues which I said she can deal with, and especially because she worked with the team on a number of issues which on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good evening, Honorable Chair and honorable members.
Good evening.
Responding to the issues that were raised by Honorable Horn, Honorable Jele, on the issues of the stakeholder management. The previous target, Honorable Horn, is now covered under the Integrated Access and Stakeholder Management Strategy, which includes our relations with all the other ombuds, Chapter 9 institutions, government institutions that are related to the work that we are doing, government institutions of which we have most of their investigations, specifically those that are administrative justice and service delivery related, and also in respect of sharing office space and information with these particular institutions, issues of training, and also to expand our accessibility, especially during this period that we are unable to physically access members of the community. These stakeholders include the speakers of the legislature, where we use their public participation platforms. These also include COCTA in provinces, in respect of issues of service delivery of municipalities and most of the matters that we receive from municipalities. Other government departments such as the Department of Education, Human Settlements, Department of Home Affairs, the Government Pension Agency, but also other similar institutions which conduct investigations, the Office of the AG, the SIU. We are now busy with the MOU for the NPA as well as the Hawks, and also the assistance that we are getting from the Department of Justice to access their Justice College, and also what we are now approaching the National School of Governance in respect of training. So these initiatives are all helping us not only to expand our footprint to align to our Vision 2023 during this difficult period of COVID, but also to ensure that we've got an integrated approach towards our investigations. And this will also include the FIC, which has conducted training within our institution, and we continue to collaborate with them in respect of investigations. The Human Rights Commission, we have the Alexandra Renewal Project that we have started with the Human Rights Commission. It's towards completion now, but also we have the investigations into the institutions of higher learning as well as NFSs that we are collaborating with the South African Human Rights Commission in. This is really to ensure that we do not start from scratch to spend resources on these investigations, because there is work that has been done, particularly by the Human Rights Commission. And this collaboration, Chairperson, is mainly to ensure that we strengthen our skills transferal from other institutions which share similar work as we do. We share information, compare our case management system like we've done with SAPS, and also to tap into similar matters that we are doing to be able to differentiate which institution is doing which part of the investigation, and which part of the investigation do we concentrate on. This has also particularly assisted us in our COVID-19 matters, of which we've finalized over 1,600 and only have 6 matters left, where we realized that in respect of these matters, we had to implement our developmental approach, because other institutions had done the normal investigations in respect of these matters, but we had to look at the maladministration within these. And we further had to look are these institutions, in terms of what had transpired, in a proper position to execute their mandate? So this is also the reason why we did not complete these particular projects within their required timeframes, because looking deeper into the developmental mandate of those institutions concerned and the services that they provide did require more time, especially because during the COVID time, some of the employees were not at work. So it is only now that systems are moving much faster within those departments, and we're able to get a speedy response than we had.
What is this Alexander Renewal Program? Is it the one that we know, or do you have a different one that you are doing with the South African Human Rights Commission?
Chairperson, you can kindly repeat your question?
I'm saying that the DPP made mention of the Alexander Renewal Program. Is it a different program than the one that we know, which is an infrastructure program, or the one that we are doing with the South African Human Rights Commission? So what does it entail?
It is the same project, Chairperson. It really entails the conditions around the Alexandra Renewal Project, the maladministration, the human rights issues that had transpired. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll hand over to the CEO.
Thank you, PP. Chairperson, before I respond to questions, and I want to apologize for my rudeness, I want to start by appreciating the warm words that you expressed, and I promise not to disappoint. I promise to give this job my best, and I will be here to serve the people of South Africa, as I've done for the past 20 years or so of my life, and I promise to continue to do the same, and they will get the best out of me. But just to respond to some of the questions raised, the first question was regarding the vacancies. Yes, it is true, we do have a number of senior posts that are vacant, but as we mentioned that we had a budget cut of about 16 million in this financial year, which made it very, very difficult to fill some of the posts. And the vacant posts that are funded are only 2. Then we have the other 2 that are unfunded. So with the budget cut, it was really difficult to fill those posts. The post, I think probably the members are aware of the post, because it seems like we have too many posts, too many people acting, which is not necessarily the case. It is the case, but the post in the Western Cape is not vacant because the incumbent is still in the post itself, but she's on extended sick leave. So that's why we have somebody acting in that province. But the post is not yet vacant. We are dealing with the matter, and we are trying to find a way of assisting the official, because it seems as if she's sick and it's unlikely that she'll be able to come back to work. So we just have those few that are still vacant, but it's a pity that some are unfunded. With regards to the issue of the offices, yes, honorable members, it has been something that has been spoken about over some time. The fact that we want to share with other organs of state, we want to share office accommodation. We have been in consultation with Justice Department, who has been very generous. They've given us a list of their old magistrate offices that we can utilize as our offices. So as the lease agreements come to an end, we are planning to move to those offices. We've already identified, I think, 2 around Gauteng, where we'll be operating satellite offices, or the other one we want to move in as a fully fledged office, but the other one will be a satellite office for us. Given the vastness of Gauteng, we felt we should increase our footprint in that regard. So that's a project, but we have a whole list from Justice that we'll be looking into. And we've also identified the post office as one of the state organs that we can tap on, because the post office is closing most of its post offices. So we'll see to what extent can they probably give us their infrastructure to utilize to expand our footprint. Then we talking about the issue of the drop boxes, as I said, we have started the procurement process to get the box with the drop boxes. But I remember in my previous life, we engaged with the post office who had a number of boxes that they used apparently at some years ago as post boxes. So we're trying to see if they still do not have those boxes so that they can give them to us, hand them over to us, because they were not utilizing them. Instead of going out to procure new boxes, we're checking with the post office whether it's not possible for us to get those boxes. And we will be putting them then at different magistrate offices, including the post office itself. We'll also be talking to institutions like SASA, which has a vast footprint, to see if they cannot also accommodate our drop boxes and then make arrangements for us to go and pick up those drop boxes. At least that will give our clients an opportunity to communicate with us. If they have anything to report, then they can put their little report piece of paper into those drop boxes. So it's a project that's ongoing, and we intend to finalize it at least by the end of the second quarter, because there's a lot of consultation that's involved in that. The issue of, okay, we've spoken about the office space with other organs of state. The revenue enhancement or generation model. We have developed a business case or a revenue model that we have shared with Treasury. It was submitted to Treasury in December last year, and Treasury has been applying its mind, but we have a meeting scheduled with the National Treasury on the 12th, which is next week, where we'll be presenting this. Because we realize that it's unlike the AG, whose legislation probably already allows them to generate some income. Our legislation, unfortunately, is not that generous. So some of the things that we want to do that are part of that revenue generation strategy will require us to amend the legislation. So the meeting next week then with Treasury will deal with that proposal that we put forward to them, but we'll also deal with some other avenues that we want Treasury to explore to assist us probably generate income or get additional funding for our work. Which takes us to the issue of the implications or the risks associated with the budget cuts that we're experiencing. The first thing, with the budget cuts, that's why we're unable to fill vacant posts, because in the previous financial year, we had a budget cut of 16 million. In the current financial year, we have a budget cut of 28 million. So you can just imagine the impact thereof. That's why we're stuck now. We cannot fill some of the positions. So we're trying to see to what extent can we probably maximize with the resources that we have. We will be commissioning a work study during the course of this financial year to make sure that we look at our business process as well. We look at ways of re-engineering our business process and find different ways of doing investigations and basically just running this business and see if it will not yield probably some results that will lead to cost containment. So we will be presenting all that to the National Treasury on the 12th, which is next week. Then thereafter, we will then submit our proposals for the amendments to the legislation to the Department of Justice for consideration. Chairperson, I think that covers the questions that I had to respond to, unless if I have missed any of the questions, the colleagues can also remind me. Or the other question was with regards to the progress with the suspension, with the people who have been suspended, the senior managers. We have received the sanctions from council and we are processing that. We just processed it, and so we will inform the committee once we have finalized the process. But for now, we received the sanctions and we are processing it. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. I requested the CFO to address the issue of the mobile app. The process is at an advanced stage to implement it. So she will just indicate what are the hold up. Over to you, CFO.
Thank you, PP. Good afternoon, Chairperson. Once more, good evening. In relation to the mobile app, we had planned to procure one and implement it in the previous financial year. However, we were unsuccessful in two procurement processes that we embarked on. where we received non-responsive bids, so we could not conclude. However, we then requested National Treasury for a deviation in order to engage a state entity in this regard, and we received the response from National Treasury a few weeks ago, and that project will be implemented in the current financial year. I think the other question that had been raised relates to the ICT infrastructure, why it's not applicable in the current year. In terms of our need, the ICT infrastructure refreshment is quite urgent. However, due to financial constraints, we are unable to commit in implementing that because we do not have the funding. In the slide where we presented our financial requirements, we indicated an amount of 10.5 million that we require for that ICT infrastructure to be refreshed, but that's money we do not have at the moment. So we couldn't put it on our APP because we knew that we would not be able to implement such. Then the last one relates to security services. Who is currently rendering the services? We currently have physical security services or physical guards at the head office only, and we have a service provider that renders that, and PPSA is paying for those services. And then the rest of the offices, we have recently implemented a video-fied security system. However, we need to improve on that because that is just basic and it's only responded to by an armed response or reaction, which takes some time. Yet we are experiencing risks in the offices during office hours. We would have reported in the past that there's also been threats that have been directed to our employees, but over and above that, our assets have been stolen in some of the offices as a result of lack of security. Thank you, PP.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for your indulgence.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the briefing. We still reiterate under difficult conditions our principled position that we do not support budget cuts, especially for Chapter 9 institutions. We think that you are performing a very valuable service in terms of our constitution. But as you would know that our position is becoming difficult and more difficult as the economic situation is becoming more dire. So we would, in fact, there was an issue that was raised by Honorable Horn. I think it should also be food for thought for all our entities, including yourselves. I think expanding on what he has raised, you should be thinking much more deeper about how are you going to make, in fact, the learnings from the current situation, how are you going to take them as learning as moving forward to the new situation? For instance, reducing the cost of doing business using ICT, reducing the office space using ICT. I think you would need to have a much more deeper strategy, because there are positives out of this situation. It has taught us to be creative, but we must take these lessons forward so that even if we can go back to a normal situation, but we should have learned to do certain things. For instance, as Parliament, we've got a lot to learn. Even there are lessons that we are going to take going forward. I think it will be important that all of us do the same. The other issue is you have raised the issue of revenue generation, which might need legislative amendments. But it would be important that we we take a holistic approach to the Public Protector Act, because it is not in line with the 1996 Constitution. And then it's 25 years since the Constitution was adopted, and we have an act that is not in line with the current Constitution. I think we should be prioritizing that as a matter of agency together. Maybe you can ask for some assistance from the Department of Justice, but we should be expecting a legislative amendment soon. In fact, a holistic legislative amendment for the Act. But we also like to welcome you to the League of Clean Audits. You are one of the three. In the entities that report to us is yourselves, OCJ, and the Legal Aid. So it's the top three. But what is also interesting is that the clean audit is also linked to improved performance. Because clean audit on its own is just an accounting, it just says that we have accounted well. But it has also, this one is linked to improve performance from 72% to 79%. I think in the next financial year, I would like to see 84, and that year 90. By the time we leave office, it must be above 95, close to 100. But well done and congratulations for the good work. You see that when we have done very well, there are very few questions. On that note, the meeting is adjourned. We will start with a new one, with the next entity, that is the Legal Aid. And good evening.
Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, there's a question that I did not answer. The question of the complaint box, I didn't hear that response. I'm not sure if it's me.
So I stop and do my questions, guys. Did you answer her questions? But
hello, Advocate Kalega, you are muted. Yes. Can proceed, DPP.
Chair, we're done. Thank you. We're just speaking amongst ourselves.
Yes, there is an issue around a Dropbox. Honorable Jailer did not understand you well.
On the chat that has been posted by Honorable Chair, I understand it to be in the next time that we meet, Honorable Jailer would like me to elaborate on the Alexandra project, which we would do. At this stage, we are not yet at the final stage, and we have not yet released the report.
No, that's not the one. She's asking about the Dropbox program that we have started.
Justice.
Oh, the drop boxes at the court, Honorable Chair. What we are also in discussion with the Department of Justice is that where they are unable to give us the office space for our team to go at least once a month or once a week, but that we are able to put drop boxes, because the courts is where it is most accessible for the public, and mostly in each and every district you find that there is a court, and it is in areas that we are unable to access.
Thank you very much. One of the areas that I think you must be credited for, there is a lot of innovation that is coming through from the Office of the PP. But we are going to give you time next year, because our program is tight now, so that you can brief us about your systemic investigation and all of the innovation that you are coming up with. I think it's very interesting. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, Honorable Members. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Can we start at 7:05 with the Legal Aid? We are allowing them to log in and to flight their slides.
Chair, it's Patrick Huntermark. I wonder if I can ask the administrators to allow me to share my screen. I see the option says it's not available to me. Thanks, Chair.
Noted. That will be done now.
Welcome, Judge. How are you?
Well, thank you and good evening, Chair.
Good evening.
Can you go ahead?
Yes, good evening, Judge. You can go ahead and welcome
Thank
again.
you. Yes, good evening, Chairperson and honorable committee members. It's always been a pleasure to be with you. Mine is a very simple job, is to indicate who is with me today for this presentation. From non-executive board members, it's myself, and I'm accompanied by my deputy, Mr. Xola Nqola. From the management side, the CEO, Ms. Untitled Chapter, is here. Also, we have our CFO, Precious Mbingo, and our COO, Mr. Sitopo Mamoteti. And then on the people who do legal services is the Chief Legal Executive Officer, Mr. Patrick Mulma, as well as Advocate Brian Nair, the National Executive. Chair, today we are here to present to you our annual performance plan, to tell you what we plan to do for this year and whether it meets with the objectives. I'll hand over to the CEO to take us through and tell you who's going to present what before you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. Thank you very much. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members. I think the chairperson forgot to introduce our audit chair member, Mayor Mamudike Makhoba. As per committee directive, we were asked to always bring our audit committee chairperson. So Ms. Makhoba Mamudike is with us today.
My apologies, Mamudike, really.
Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening to you, Honorable Chair and honorable members. And if there's senior management from the department and colleagues from the Department of Justice, we thank you for the opportunity to present this year's APP and also the budget. The two are very indispensable to ensure that we deliver on our constitutional mandate and that of rendering legal aid and legal advice to our indigenous client. And also that we achieve the outcomes that we have set for ourselves in the strategic plan of 2020-2025. Before we get to the business of the day, may I take this opportunity from the legal aid family to offer our heartfelt condolences on the loss of one of your own, Honorable Member Mejeki Mufokeng and her daughter. May the souls of the departed rest in eternal peace.
Thank you very much.
Our presentation outline will cover the introduction, the Legal Aid SA mandate, vision and mission. And we'll then move to the business of the day, which is the details of our annual performance plan 2021 to 2022, and also present the budget for 2021 and 2022. We'll also share with the committee the strategic risks that we have identified that may impede our achievement of what we have set out to do in this financial year. And then we'll have concluding remarks. Thank you. Our annual performance plan for 2021 is the second year of the implementation of the 2025 strategic plan. It outlines the programs, the outputs, and the targets to ensure that we are aligned to what we set out for ourselves in the strategic plan. The budget 2021 was a mission to arrive at a balanced budget. It was prepared in accordance with the grant allocation containing a baseline reduction of 182 million. The reduced budget, which is 100 million for the compensation of employees, 82 million for the goods and services, is impacting on our delivery model and our capacity to discharge the mandate. The structure of our APP with your permission, Chair, may we move to the APP, that is skip the mission and vision, also the constitutional and legislative mandate. The structure of the APP is divided into 4 strategic components that covers all aspects of our business. The 4 areas are based on the balanced scorecard component. The first one is client, community, and stakeholder. The second one is finance and sustainability. The third one is internal processes. And the third one is employee and organizational capacity, innovation, and learning. Our plan seeks to achieve 13 outcomes that are linked to those 4 strategic areas. And to achieve those outcomes, we have 16 programs. So what slide 9 and 11 is doing is to indicate a golden thread between the components of the scorecard, which is our strategic areas, the 4 key strategic areas, the 13 outcomes that we'd like to achieve, and also the programs that will enable us to achieve those 13 outcomes. In slide 9, we outline the first component, which is the client, community, stakeholder, and shareholder. We list the 6 outcomes that are related to that strategic area, which is the delivery of criminal legal aid, the delivery of civil legal aid, the delivery of client-focused legal advice, the delivery of strategic litigation, and our contribution to the justice system, and how we execute our accountability to our executive authority, who is the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Next to the outcomes, there's a program that we set out to do that will help us achieve the outcomes. When we get to the second strategic area, which is finance and sustainability, which becomes very key as we embark on this journey of reduced budgets. In terms of the finance and sustainability, we set out to improve financial sustainability and manage reductions in the budget. As you will see, with a 9% budget cut for this financial year, we still had to make plan to deliver the APP within that reduced amount. The program that is linked to that is we continuously improve financial planning, budgeting, and managing the budget cuts to ensure a balanced budget. We maintain a strong best practice of financial management and reporting to ensure our unbroken record of unqualified audit outcomes and high financial maturity. In terms of outcome 8, we strive to maintain and enhance good governance in line with all the applicable prescripts. And we maintain and enhance an independent monitoring mechanisms. In terms of the internal processes, we strive to maintain a regulatory framework that incorporates best practices and is responsive to changes in the overall environment. And we will ensure that from time to time, we review the Legal Aid Act, the Legal Aid Regulations, and the Legal Aid Manual. And also we strive to maintain strong financial management, supply chain, and asset management practices as informed by best practices and in compliance with the PFMA. Thank you. Then with regard to employee and organizational capacity, innovation, and learning, would like to make sure that all our footprints are appropriately staffed so that we're able to render our mandate. And we also strive to strengthen and continuously improve the quality and expertise for each segment of the national footprint. With regard to IT, we set out ourselves to enhance and maintain an integrated service client-oriented and secured information technology with capacity to integrate with stakeholders. On an annual basis, we review our IT strategy, IT architecture framework, maturity, and all IT policies, as we'll appreciate that the advent of COVID forced us to review a lot of our ICT framework. Thank you. The next slides, we are outlining the programs in terms of sharing what the purpose of each program is, what's the output indicator, and also the target which it commit with the, and also showing the allocated budget. In terms of program 1, that's a criminal legal aid, our target is that we'll only be able to cover 80% of the district court coverage and 90% of the regional court. And for the High Court, all legal aid matters will be covered. You'll notice that we have moved from 86 to 80 with regard to the district court coverage, and from 94 to 90 in response to the budget cuts. And the budget that's allocated for that program 1, it's 1.1 billion, since this is our core business. With regard to program 2, which is civil legal aid delivery, we endeavor to provide, to have our officers work at 90% capacity, and also ensure that 10% of the judicare matters are civil, And also we strive to have about 5,672 new matters with our cooperatives. And the budget is 166 million. With regard to a service delivery model for legal representation in the land and land court matters, a responsive delivery model will be developed within the available budget. As we're taking over that responsibility for land amidst the budget cuts, even for our normal business. The delivery model and capacity requirements would be approved by the board, and the baseline budget made available to fulfill the envisaged mandate in land-related matters would also be approved by the board, and the delivery model will be crafted in accordance with the available budget. We have still not yet received the budget, but negotiations are underway, directed by the Department of Justice between ourselves and the Department of Agriculture. Thank you. With regard to general legal advice, we have an advice line, and we do not set out a target for the advice line since that it's demand related and it's also based on available capacity. With regard to strategic litigation matters, we plan to do 4 per quarter, which translate to 16 matters per annum. And we continue to participate in Program 5 in all forums within the justice cluster. And those would include the attendance of the National Efficiency Committee. And also with Program 6, we undertake to provide the 4 quarterly performance reports submitted within 1 month of the end of the quarter and the annual report to the executive authority as outlined in the prescripts. With regard to financial planning, our target is still that of having a balanced budget in consideration with what has been allocated to us and available cash reserves that we have. We also strive to make sure that we comply with all applicable and relevant standards for reporting the financials, the annual and the mid-year ones. And also we have a target to comply 100% with all statutory requirements. In terms of our audit coverage, it is risk-based, and we strive to attain 95% or no less than 95% of the approved audit coverage plan. And we have a properly constituted board, thanks to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, that's led by the judge. And we're happy to announce that the vacancy that we had in the board has been filled with a board member that's well versed in the land matters. So the new board member assumed office in May, and we look forward to her contribution in the upholding of governance and also helping us navigate this new responsibility of land matters. Thank you. In terms of the legal framework, the Legal Aid SA Act, regulations and manual, we have a target to review them every 2 years so that we are responsive to the environment and the reviews from our business on areas that require attention. With regard to supply chain, our target is to comply 100% with the PPSA, PFMA, and all relevant NT regulations when acquiring goods and services. In terms of the staffing plans, we still would like to have our footprint appropriately staffed at 95% of the establishment. This is proving very difficult given the budget cuts, but the team is currently being very innovative in the rationalization projects that they're working on to make sure that we do not get to a stage where we must shed headcount. We are compliant with regard to the submission of the skills plans and the annual training reports to the relevant CETAs. And also we have a board-approved EE plan for 2020-25 that we are currently executing, and the board is actively monitoring that execution of that EE plan. In terms of the IT network, we have seen considerable growth and innovation due to COVID. VPN is connected to all sites and availability is at 95% most of the time. The hardware capacity is aligned to business needs and is available 99% of the time. IT software applications are fully integrated, and our new ELA system is in its second year, and we have seen considerable business benefits emanating from the rollout of that ELA system. In terms of cybersecurity, we have developed a roadmap that we are in the second year of that roadmap, and we are delivering on all the projects that were identified in the roadmap. Thank you. That then concludes our APP with the 4 strategic areas, 13 outcomes, and the 16 programs that we set out in the approved APP. And with regard to the budget, that's a sore point for us because we were hopeful that our submissions for review of the budget cut will be considered. Unfortunately, we experienced a budget cut of about 8% for this financial year. And this comes at the background of the money as well that we had to give away in 2020-2021. Like all state-funded institutions, we have experienced a reduction in budget allocation over the previous MTEF periods. The total reduction since 2015-16 now is standing at 449 million. This has had a negative impact on service delivery as 80% of the budget is spent on employee costs, and legal practitioners make up to 79% of the total staff component. That's what makes juggling of the budget very difficult for us, since 80% of our budget is expended on our professional legal practitioners. This slide just indicates our budget allocation over a 6-year period, indicating that for the year under review, we have about 2.2 billion that's allocated to us. We had to shed about 182 million, and that translates to 8.3% budget cut for this financial year. Thank you. The decline in funding is continuing the current FTEF, and the picture still looks grim in the sense that we are to face further cuts of almost 10% for 2022-23, and about 6% in the latter year of the MTEF. The total cut over the MTEF period is 534 million. This just depicts the budget cuts that we have to contend with for this financial year. Like I said before, it's 182 million, 100 million for compensation of employees, 82 million for goods and services. And in the next financial year, we are to shed 230 million, and in the outer year, 121 million. Then next two slides just share the factors considered in the preparation of the budget. Thank you. And this one as well. This slide shows the budget allocation per expenditure, and it still shows that the bulk of our budget is expended on salaries and related costs and other direct expenditure that are related to service delivery. The big chunk of that other direct expenditure is our duty care, which is an extension of our service delivery model. Thank you. This slide shows a budget allocation per component of the balance scorecard, still indicating that the majority of the money is spent on the professional legal practitioners or on the core business. This slide shows the impact of the budget cut on goods and services. For us to cut 82 million from the goods and services, we had to decrease the duty care budget by 33 million and all the other cost lines as indicated. The major reduction is on duty care, which has already alluded to the fact that it's part of service delivery. The impact on the budget cut on the staff component or on the establishment, that's where we are hard hit. For us to accommodate that 8.3 budget cut, we had to rationalize the positions, and 113 positions will not be advertised in this financial year. And that 113 comprised of 85 legal practitioners and 28 support staff members. So we have to optimize and make do with what we have. And that means that our staff members will have more to deal with in their in-baskets, as we will not be able to advertise those 113 positions. Thank you. The impact on the budget cut on the criminal legal aid services, as I've already indicated, we have a target of 80% for this financial year, and that is a 4% decrease from 86% to 81.3%. And also for the regional court, we're moving from 94% to 90.1%. And this reduction in court coverage will result in various challenges. And to add salt to injury is that we no longer have any additional staff available to provide for relief capacity should a legal aid practitioner become unavailable for any reason. The impact on civil legal aid is enormous, since already we are working above our capacity target of 45,000. In the last year, we had to give about 2.732 clients a waiting period, as we had reached capacity in all our local offices. And this indicates that the demand for civil assistance increases while legal aid is already operating at capacity. For this financial year, there's a further reduction in capacity for 2750 matters in the 2021, since our budget is 42,423 matters. And we've also included our strategic risks that are also modeled along those 4 strategic areas. The first one for client community is, the first risk is that clients would be deprived of their constitutional right to access to justice and or to their liberty. We may have lack of capacity to deliver on the demand for legal services, which has already materialized. And we may have poor quality of legal services provided by all our service units, the local offices, Judicare, cooperation partners, agency agreements, because they would have more on their plate. And this may harm the reputation of legal aid arising from managing poor service-related matters. In the legal and justice fraternity, this made our inability to deliver legal services may just add to the lack of confidence in the justice system. Finance and governance, I think, continue budget cuts, shortfalls impacting on our delivery. That risk has materialized. Also, we identified a weakening culture of good corporate governance that may result in our inability to detect system deficiencies and non-compliance, unethical, corrupt, and fraudulent practices or acts, sustainability risk, sustainable high performance and increasing maturity impacted by external factors like budget cuts, focus on state on crimes and convictions, and internal factors, leadership, employee engagement, and culture. In terms of the employee and organizational capacity and innovation and learning, increasing trust deficit by employees due to varied perspectives of reality, resulting in growing conceptual gap against management and negatively impacting on employee engagement, unable to keep pace with the new or emerging technology, resulting in poor adoption of 4IR opportunities that enhance effective business operations, poor data security and protection of information, resulting in non-compliance with established regulations and standards of good practice, poor risk-based approach on cybersecurity leading to exposure and losses of business assets and personal information of employees, clients, and stakeholders. This, the board is monitoring on a continual basis. On a quarterly basis, we have to report on how we're progressing on all the 13 risks. Thank you. In conclusion, our performance plan is focused on fulfillment of our constitutional and legislative mandate, thereby assisting indigent and vulnerable South Africans to access justice. The outlook for the future in terms of financial challenges remains uncertain, and we must continue to manage the budget carefully given the baseline reductions over the MTEF period 2021 to 2024. The organization, we understand the budget constraints that the country is facing and will continue to implement prudent and cost-effective measures in striving to achieve our strategies and to deliver the legal services as address the challenge of increasing demand for legal aid services in the context of limited funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. I think you have answered most of the questions that we had in mind, but I will allow members to make comments and ask questions. Honorable Horn, Honorable Breitenbach, Honorable Nqola, in that order. Honorable Jale. Honorable Horn.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good evening to the team from Legal Aid South Africa. Chair, I have just a few questions. Firstly, in respect of the budget cuts and then the decision to cut Judicare substantially by 32 million, the way I've always understood the reports from Legal Aid South Africa is that Judicare is at this stage only in existence in respect of when it comes to magistrates courts, areas where Legal Aid South Africa do not have offices or deem it not to be financially viable to send their professional employees to represent members, and then to a a bit of a larger extent in our regional courts and our high courts. Now, we've seen there that they specifically envisaged that our regional courts, the coverage there, Legal Aid South Africa envisaged that will be reduced. And the question I want to ask in respect of these two issues are the following. Firstly, if Judicare is reduced in the dramatic way it's being reduced, what will the impact be regarding the access to legal representation in deep rural areas? And secondly, in respect of the regional courts specifically, where more serious crimes are being prosecuted, what will the situation be if defendants indicate to the court that they cannot afford their own legal representation, and then the courts insist that legal aid afford such an accused person legal representation? And then, in addition to that, regarding staffing issues, Chair, we know that Legal Aid South Africa has for years been deemed and even voted one of the preferred preferred employers or employers of choice, specifically in the legal fraternity. But of late, over the last year or so, it has not been always seemingly the most happiest of environments. So if we could be, in terms of the annual performance plan, be afforded some information as to any initiatives that are there to ensure the continued development of staff, to ensure I want to say the emotional well-being of staff, as well as quite possibly feedback, even if it is not included in the annual performance plan, around the plans of Legal Aid South Africa to retain skills and build in-house capacity. Once again, specifically, if one looks towards the representation in some of our higher courts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to everybody. Following on the question of Honorable Horn, I'm quite concerned about how, and I get the budget cuts and I get the necessity for cutting, but I'm quite concerned about how these cuts will affect access to justice, not only in deep rural areas, but in less rural areas, and the effect that will have on court rolls. You know, accused people who cannot afford their own representatives are going to say to the court that they want legal aid. Matters are going to be postponed for them to obtain legal aid. That's going to go back and forth and back and forth. And if legal aid is unable to represent them, well, you know, that's going to be a problem, because some of the offences are serious, and accused people are entitled to representation. And that will have a knock-on effect, again, for the increase of backlog cases. Court hours will plummet, the court roll will back up. So there's a whole lot of problems as a result of this. If that could just be addressed a little bit more in detail. And these funding cuts are going to have serious effects in the justice system for legal aid. I don't see a happy outcome here, but I'd like a little bit more detail about what plans there are to mitigate those knock-on effects for justice, if that's possible. And then the fact that, as a result of the budget cuts, you know, quite correctly, the CEO mentions that every legal aid practitioner will have more matters in their inbox. Well, yes, but we're not talking about simple matters. You know, they appear in the high courts, they appear in the regional courts, They're serious matters, and in any event, every matter is serious for the accused person. So, there's a lot of pressure on legal aid lawyers to perform well all the time. If they've got more in their inboxes, that's a whole lot more pressure. We're now told that there's no substitute. So if somebody becomes ill, they're just not available. It's another court case that doesn't go ahead, another court roll that collapses, another delay, and adding to the backlog. But what about the legal aid practitioners? I mean, surely their emotional and professional and mental health will suffer if they're under all of this pressure. And if they become ill, that's it for that case. It becomes very difficult to handle, and it's grossly unfair to put that kind of pressure on them. So my question is, what is the current sort of caseload per legal practitioner? Just generally speaking, I know it's very difficult to determine. And how will these cuts increase that caseload per practitioner? Because I think we're starting to border on, almost unfair labor practices here. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Drashan.
Thank you very much to Legal Aid. Thank you for your presentation, and good evening to everyone. I am actually quite scared to ask the following questions because they are, sorry. Chairperson, could we ask for the presentation to be removed? The interpreter is struggling to see Honorable Wilma in order to interpret. And then can she be spotlighted as well? Thank you so much. Thank you and good evening to everyone. I was saying that I'm a bit hesitant to ask about the funding questions. I mean, we're hearing about budget cuts everywhere and the constraints that will affect access to justice for the most vulnerable. And that means that people who can't afford lawyers, they're not wealthy, they are more vulnerable and more poor, and they would normally use legal aid to get assistance for their cases. So it's not only the backlogs, but also maybe the people who need bail. They could languish in prisons for longer periods because they will not be able to get assistance from legal aid. So that, I must admit, that really scares me as well. And other honorable members have covered me. I would just like to add that in relation to pending the staff that you cannot fill, what will you do, or the pending retrenchments, what will you do for the morale in legal aid amongst South Africa? How will you handle that or cope with the morale amongst the staff at Legal Aid South Africa? And the reductions, there's been a decrease. There's been a decrease by 30.6% to, that's 2018, 2019. What is the reason for that particular decrease? And I would also like to know the impact of COVID-19 on the organization. How many were infected, affected, those kind of numbers. How many centers or offices had to be closed because of the pandemic. And then in terms of unexpected expenses that had to go towards COVID-related matters, and how did that impact the organization? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Xola.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think Honorable Nivot has just covered me on the issues of decreases. I wanted also to, good evening, Team Legal Aid. My apology for that. On the issues of decreases, Chairperson, and also increases in some areas, and also in fact there are fluctuations on the demand for legal services. I think she has covered me, because I was going to give them even the years myself, because there's those decreases on criminal cases. She has already mentioned some year that is seen between 2018, 2019, and also in 2019, 2020. About 3.1% of that. And then also on the civil cases, there is also a decrease of about 4 years, and then between 2016, 2017 to 2019, 2020. And then also, Chairperson, the fluctuations between the increases and those decreases are also found on 2015 to 2016, 2016, 17, decrease 2016, 17. I think they've got that information. So would really want them to give us reasons exactly in terms of these fluctuations, decreases and increases on the demand of the legal services. Lastly, Chairperson, it's only one question on, it has been reported before that the survivors of, during lockdown, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, particularly during that period that I've already mentioned, those survivors often struggled to get access to justice, and then also healthcare, and then also legal aid and counseling services. Why is that? If they can explain that to us. We know that it was difficult, yes, because of lockdown. Maybe they can also give us reasons, because that is one area that is very important, the area of gender-based violence. Thank you, Chair. I'll end there.
Thank you, Honorable Swart.
No, thank you, Chair, and good evening to you, Judge.
Apologies.
And good evening to...
Apologies, Honorable Swart. Wilmer, this is Honorable Wilmer. Chairperson, could you please ask the host to allow pinning, because I cannot see the interpreter properly. If the host could allow me to pin the interpreter, thank you. And apologies for the interruption.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Thank you to all the members of the Legal Aid Board and Chair. I think a lot of the issues have been covered, and particularly what the Honourable Breitenbach has said. And I'm sure we are all deeply concerned about the budget cuts and the impact that this will have on the delivery of justice and the accessibility of courts, court services, and the decrease that we see. So I'm not going to dwell on that. I think we've all dwelt on that already. What I would like to just then ask a specific question about the taking over of legal representation in land-related matters. And I understood the presenter to say within the available budget. Now, according to our discussions yesterday, I raised the issue with the minister, and my understanding is clearly that the budget must follow the function from the Department of Agriculture. This is something that we raised in previous years, in the previous parliament. It's in our minutes as well, when we suggested that the function of legal representation in land-related matters should come across to the Legal Aid Board. It's even in our resolutions. So I would need clarity as to those negotiations, because, Chair, I think this is something we need to follow up. Clearly, given the budget cuts and the limitations on the Legal Aid Board, now clearly, given this additional work, will require substantial additional budgets to come from the Department of Agriculture. And I think that is something we need to follow up and make it very clear that we insist on that, the funds following from that department. So, Chair, that is briefly my input from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. On my side, to what an extent are you leveraging partnerships with other like-minded institutions, for instance, your legal aid clinics in universities, your legal resources centers, your lawyers for human rights? To what an extent are you leveraging that to ensure that there is you increase your footprints through partnership with other institutions? And then also the court online system, are you part of it? If not, why? And then the last one is what will be the effect on yourselves because of the rolling out of sexual offences courts, the special commercial courts, and the impact of the land court bill? If you can just touch on those issues. Over to you, Judge, and to your team.
Thank you, Chair. Before the judge comes, I just want to highlight that the issues pertaining to delivery of services, the Judicare card, the impact on the justice system value chain, the caseload, and also the question on the court online system will be addressed by our NOE advocate, Brian. The issue of the employee wellness and the impact of COVID will be addressed by our COO, Ndate Sitopo. And the issues relating to civil delivery, the gender-based violence, the impact of the Sexual Offense Act, and also how we leverage partnerships with universities in the delivery of civil legal aid will be taken by our CLE, Mr. Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CEO. My name is Brian Nair. I'm the National Operations Executive. I'll try to cover a few of the issues dealing with the delivery aspects. Firstly, Honorable On mentioned the issue around Judicare. I just need to maybe give a bit of background on the cut on Judicare. The cut does seem a bit high.
Is it possible that you can see you, or is your bandwidth too low?
Judge, sorry, Chair, I will try to put my video on.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I'm visible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so just that my camera is not facing me, unfortunately. Just moving on, yes, coming to the budget cut, the cut seems fairly large. But what I need to assure the committee on the cut is that at the beginning of last year, we did get an allocation of 20 million new funding for Judicare. However, with the budget cut, that funding was taken away. We had to give it back. So effectively, the impact of that 20 million was not something that we actually felt, because it was a new allocation which was then taken back. Judicare is issued for various reasons, as Honorable On mentioned. But it would include, for instance, where there's conflict of interest, where we're running short of capacity, where practitioners have to write exams and they're not going to be there for a period of time, etc. But it is spread across fee. It's not only at rural areas. In the rural areas, our strategy is to have agency partners where we actually contract with a particular firm to render services at a court that we have very little access to get there because of the distances concerned. So in terms of our court coverage model, Chair, we have practitioners based at every courtroom, and this covers a bit of Advocate Breitenbach's question also. So in effect, what the cut has done is it has resulted in us more thinly covering courts. So for instance, whereas we will cover a regional court 5 days a week, that means every day it sits, we may now have to cover some of those courts 4 days a week. So the impact of that would be that we'll still take the same number of matters from that court, because we can't say, no, we're not providing representation to the client. But it'll mean that our practitioners will then have to cover the same number of matters in fewer days, so their pending loads will therefore increase. It will mean that the matters themselves will begin to be stretched out. It will result in backlogs of the matters, which we are actually starting to see at the moment. And hence, it may impact eventually on the quality. But for this financial year, the impact, fortunately, is not going to be as considerable, because management and the board has taken the decision that because we are budgeting for the cost of living increase to be 0% as per guidelines from National Treasury, the number of posts that we have actually sacrificed, as you had seen in the slide, was just over 100 posts. What management has done is did a careful analysis of the demand of every courtroom, so that we try to align our supply to the demand from that courtroom. So as a result, when we had to do this rationalization exercise, we were able to actually not fill posts that were vacant without necessarily impacting at this stage too significantly on the coverage. So where we sit right now, we are saying that for this financial year, notwithstanding the cutoff, that 100-odd positions, we do not think that it's going to have a serious impact this year, because our coverage of the courts in terms of the practitioner coverage is more or less aligned to what demand we are actually seeing right now. Thankfully, I won't say thankfully, but to a certain extent, the year that has passed, because of the reduced demand as a result of COVID as well, it has also assisted in the fact that our reduced capacity was able to absorb whatever came from the court. So I think all the concerns of honourable members in terms of the impact, that is backlog cases, court hours that may increase, may plummet, is realistic concern that can take place. The good thing is that for this financial year, we don't think legal aid is going to contribute too significantly to that backlog, because our capacity at the moment, because of the way in which we budget, will more or less cover the demand. There was a question that dealt specifically with our pending numbers and how we are doing in terms of the pendings. I have been able to quickly look at our year-end stats, and I can say that for the district courts, 94% of our practitioners are within our target in terms of the number of pending matters they're carrying at a point in time. In terms of the regional courts, for a target of not more than 100 matters pending at a point in time, only 74% of our practitioners have reached their target. So there is a bit of concern in the regional court, but in the High Court, we're well within our target in terms of practitioners not carrying more than 50 matters. In terms of the impact on bail, etc., COVID has had a negative effect in terms of us servicing clients. You would know the various lockdown measures that have taken place, and that has resulted in delays taking place, delays with regards especially providing services to incarcerated clients. We have seen a dramatic increase in the number of remand detainees that are over 2 years in custody, whereas at a point in time prior to COVID, it was well under 2,000. At the end of the financial year, it's now gone to over 4,000. So that's the direct impact of COVID on delivery. In terms of backlog matters, again, in all court types, backlog matters has increased quite significantly during the financial year. And we're only now starting to see a drop in the district court backlogs. as we start getting some normality in terms of the operations at court. But for regional court and high court, it's still very, very, very high. It's much higher than whatever targets we have at the moment. I'm not sure if I've covered all the questions in terms of legal services delivery system, Chair, but I'm happy to cover more. I did hear the question on decreases and fluctuations on demand. I wasn't sure, I may have missed that particular question, so I wasn't sure which slide number was specifically being referenced. So if that could be repeated, then I would be able to hopefully answer that question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Newbold, can you repeat that question, the slide number?
There was no slide number, Chair. It was from my own research. So from our researcher, apologies. It was from our researcher, so it was not in the slides.
Chair, if
Mr. Ne?
Yes, thanks. So I'm just going to try to anticipate that question. I would imagine it will be demand in terms of the number of new matters that Legal Aid South Africa has done and decreased. I can confirm that in the financial year 2020-21 that has just passed, numbers of new legal matters has dropped, and the primary reason for that decrease would be the COVID-19 impact. We did indicate at the start that the COVID-19 impact and the decreased workload at courts, especially during the lockdown, was one of the reasons why we were able to handle this period fairly smoothly with a reduced capacity. As we we go back to normality where courts run at 100% throughout the country without any court closures, the chances are that's when we're going to really feel the impact of the cuts and the reduction in our numbers. I hope that is the statistics that was being mentioned in terms of the decrease. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The next one.
Yeah, I think I've concluded the delivery part from criminal. I'm not sure if Patrick will take over.
Mr. Stoppers, your iPhone, I think, is not reaching there. Mr. Stopper?
Chairperson.
Thank you. I think the next one it's on employee wellness.
Proceed, sir.
Mr. Stopper, are you having problems?
Thank you, Chair. While we're battling with Sitopo, I can just assure the committee members that legal practitioners is not at leash for us, but they are the heartbeat of legal aid. More than 90% of our delivery is done or is carried by them. Employee wellness is top of mind and evidenced by the way we have dealt with the COVID, and we have implemented numerous measures to improve wellness, the benefits, to make sure that they are taken care of. And we continuously work in ensuring that there is a conducive environment for them to excel, considering that they face a lot of pressure in discharging their work. In terms of COVID, we unfortunately lost 8 of our colleagues, and the number of infections is about 344 when I last checked since the beginning of the pandemic. Thank you. And in terms of the money that we have expended towards COVID, we have spent more than about 12 million, and the bulk of that money went to data usage for remote working. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. Can you please accept our condolences to the families and to the Legal Aid Board for the departure of your colleagues? Please accept our deepest condolences. We know that even a loss of one person is one too many. You are in our thoughts during this difficult time.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Jale.
Yes, I wanted, Chair, my apology. I wanted to support Honorable Nqola on the matter of the slide numbers. I think we need to make our team aware that we are not working on only on the slides. We also, when we prepare for such meetings, we look in the previous also presentations that were made to us in order to be able to, you know, make sure that we don't leave anything behind. So when they come and make presentations, Chair, it won't be only the questions on that slide. They have to be ready for any question, because we will sometimes, time and again, point them to previous information that they brought to us. I wanted to support Honorable Nqola on that one, Chair. Thank you.
Yes. No, I think Mr. Nel just wanted to be pointed to where the question arises so that he can understand it. I think he just wanted to be pointed to where the comes from, understand what is behind the question. But I think he did answer the question with regards to legal aid with the decrease, that's decrease. But we do take note of this, Honorable Chair. Mr. Handemaka.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to everyone and to the honourable committee members. Maybe I'll just start in terms of the reductions, and I think the years that were mentioned. So the decrease on the criminal side of things would also have been a result of, one, the reduction in the number of arrests that have been made. Two, you would also have then better screening by the MPA in terms of matters that they are prosecuting. And which has then, if you look overall in terms of the stats going through the courts, there's also been a reduction, which then has then similarly carried through to the numbers of matters where we've provided legal representation in criminal defense matters. In regard to that question on the civil side of things, it must be remembered at a stage we started ramping up on civil, and we moved civil in terms of the numbers of matters we do from 6 to 7% up to about 13%. But then at stages when we started then getting the budget cuts, or where we had the issues in relation to not necessarily budget cuts, but where certain increases were higher than what we were given from an NTF allocation, we had to then start reducing posts. So there were a couple of factors on the civil side. Is firstly, when you get up to capacity and then you start reducing, you've got to then start reducing that, and it's a similar situation we're facing now. As at the end of this financial year, we've got 50,105 matters pending, yet our capacity is at about 43,000 cases, as we mentioned. So we've got to manage that down to our capacity levels, because otherwise we start now picking up the issues in terms of matters, and then the delays in matters. In fact, due to COVID now over the period of time, from last year, we had 17% matters beyond 18 months, now sitting at over 40% of our matters that are sitting beyond 18 months. So there's been a significant impact on us from a COVID perspective on civil. But once again, we'll have to manage downwards the number of matters we're carrying to then align it with our capacity. It must also be remembered, with budgets and budget cuts, they've been ongoing. And what we've done from a management strategy is, where that's coming, because you don't want to impact on people's lives and warm bodies, we then manage the vacancy rate so that when those cuts come, we rather than be able to reduce vacant posts than having to go through a retrenchment exercise and impact on people's lives. And it's very difficult to go and recruit in a situation where, when the budget cut comes, you've got to tell somebody, well, sorry, unfortunately, we shouldn't have recruited you, and now you have to go because you last in, first out principle. So it's been from that perspective how we've had to manage and how that has impact on our capacity and in dealing with matters, and then managing our workload down, and it's going to continue at this stage. In terms of the question relating to survivors of gender-based violence, the difficulty from a legal aid perspective, insofar as, and counselling services is not something that Legal Aid South Africa itself will present and grant. We provide legal representation. The first difficulty is, invariably you'll find we would represent the perpetrator. So that's your first issue in terms of conflict. The second issue is, you've got the National Prosecuting Authority that in essence presents the case, particularly should be representing the interests of the victim. What we could do is obviously assist insofar as it comes to legal representation, try and obtain compensation. The difficulty with that is, we can institute an action. You can take it all the way through and you might get you can get compensation. But invariably you'll find that one, sometimes you won't be able to find the perpetrator. Secondly, in terms of, if you do find the perpetrator and convicted, they don't have the ability to pay any compensation. And therefore, in the submission relating to the representation for victims of gender-based violence, we in our proposal said is we should look at rather a compensation fund, because the reality is, even if we're successful in that litigation, invariably you'll find if the perpetrator is caught, convicted and sentenced, they wouldn't be able to have the ability to pay any compensation. And I think that's the difficulty that we face within the scenario of gender-based violence and legal representation and assistance. Then just to move on in terms of leveraging on partnerships, we have what we call 9 cooperation partners. Obviously, that is also, the budget there has also been impacted by the cuts, but those are with university law clinics. We partner with the law clinics. We provide additional funding in terms of legal practitioners and candidate attorneys, so that obviously presents further opportunities for candidate attorneys to get access to the profession, as well as legal practitioners to then broaden our ability, and it's mostly on the civil side, to give legal representation. You'll particularly find a lot of our partners will be in areas where we might not be, or they specialize in certain areas that we don't do, and therefore we are able to refer refugee law, and then able to then refer to them that they can undertake those cases. So we do leverage those. In terms of Lawyers for Human Rights, Legal Resources Center, you will notice that a lot of the cases that they're involved in are in fact funded by Legal Aid South Africa, Women's Legal Center, Section 27. If you look at the Kamapi matter in the SCA, we funded them there. We're currently funding them in the Polokwane High Court relating to the issue of pit latrines and the plan to eradicate pit latrines. So a lot of those we do fund with them, and that's out of our strategic litigation unit and the funding coming out of strategic litigation. Even as an example, once again, I'll come back to silicosis, which now we can see the function. We funded Legal Resources Center. We were involved with them with 2 cases since The first case being the Blom for 25 individual families, and then now in the class action. And if you understand the benefit of that partnership, ultimately the costs that came, the total costs from a legal resources center was 13 million, where the two other private law firms, their costs are 350 million. Just to understand the benefits of the partnerships and the costs involved on that side of things. So I think that's where we do leverage on those partnerships. And I think it's important that we mention those. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sitopo, can you mute your phone? Thank you very much. CEO, are there any further replies?
Well, it doesn't look like the CEO is there. Can I just add something on what you asked in connection with partnerships? There is also an organization of paralegals, Causa. We are in constant discussions with them how to cooperate with the Paralegals Association at this stage. One of the issues that I always raise at legal services is that the organized profession was mandated by the Minister of Justice some years ago when the Legal Practice Council bill was being discussed to find ways and means of affording paralegals the right of appearance in courts in order for paralegals to be in a position to perhaps be utilized in the lower costs for bail applications, for instance. It could become very useful there in very minor matters. So that issue lies with the ministry as well as with the legal profession. The other thing which I also want to say is that we use quite a number of paralegals in legal aid. They are the people who go to prisons to take statements, and those that are employed by us. But with the partnerships or discussions we have with Causa, we think that thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Judge Makome. Honorable Mfukeng, the late would have been very happy with that initiative. That was what was very close to her heart.
Yes. I don't think Patrick and Brian have answered you on the question of the online system. You asked a specific question, where are we on online? Patrick or Brian, can you please answer the chair on that issue?
Thanks, Judge. Yeah, on the online system, obviously from Legal Aid South Africa perspective, online in terms of being able to make use of Microsoft Teams and Zoom, we've obviously extended our licenses from a Microsoft Teams perspective so that where is necessary, our practitioners are able to then deal with matters also online, and therefore not having to attend at courts. So that has been done, but most of your trials will be taking place face to face. Very limited, but during the initial stages, a lot of the postponements and that was arranged and was done via the online systems in terms of using Microsoft Teams and Zoom. Insofar as it links to the court system and particularly the case line system that's been tested and is running in the Gauteng province in terms of the high courts, all our practitioners that practice in the high courts are making use of the system. And therefore, from our side, loading up the pleadings and dealing with those documents that we're able to do, and our practitioners have that capability. There's also now at this stage, there is out for comment, and I sit on the rules board for courts of law, the e-rules for both the lower courts and the high courts that's gone out for comments, where we're looking now to move. So once the systems are available both in the lower courts and the high courts, that our rules keep pace and enable us then to obviously move better onto the online systems within the courts. So I don't know if that's answered your question, Chair, And if there was anything else, I'd happy to answer that. I think Judge is correct, though, also in terms of the paralegals. We do have an MOU where we link our officers to the various paralegal officers for backup legal services, so that the reach into the communities, particularly rural communities where the community-based paralegals are, that we can give up backup legal services. Sometimes if the matter's complex from an advice perspective, we give them that support. And or where it requires legal representation, then obviously we can assist the client in that. So we do have that partnership to extend our links out into rural areas, apart from our 64 satellite offices, where we also have an outreach program. We did have to stop it during COVID. We've now reintroduced it, subject to all the precautions of our paralegals from the satellite offices going out to communities, to other courts, and to be able to then provide advice out in communities and take our advice out into communities and not strictly based at our offices. I thought, let me just maybe deal with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Swart, is your hand up?
Yes, Chair, I'm not sure if I missed the response on the land issue and legal representation there with the budget and the discussions with the Department of Agriculture. I would like a bit more in detail response to that question, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the transfer of the LRMF from Department of Agriculture to Legal Aid, the Department of Justice is coordinating that transfer process. And Mr. Patrick Hundemark, our CFO, Ms. Precious Mbingo, are part of the task team that is coordinating that's coordinating that transfer. And one of the things that the Board of Legal Aid has reiterated on is the fact that money must be made available first for us to be able to execute this. But the department is coordinating and helping us liaise with our counterparts in the Department of Agriculture to ensure a smooth handover of the function. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any closing remarks, Judge? You are muted, Judge.
Chair, no, thank you very much. I don't think I've got much to say except to thank the portfolio committee for having listened to us today. And we hope that we've answered questions. And those questions that we've not answered that may come up, you're always free to send a note to us that we must deal with those issues. Thank you very much for the support also. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. You are one of the organizations or entities that is always a pleasure to listen to. Despite the challenges that you face, you are one of the shining stars in our stable of entities. But there are issues that we think that we would need to assist. For instance, this issue of your engagement with the Department of Agriculture and Justice. One issue that we do not like in this committee, it's endless engagements. So we want this to be treated as a project. It must have a start date and an end date. The Department of Justice will be appearing before us tomorrow, but we are going to take it up as part of our ongoing program as the committee, even if it means that we also invite the Department of Agriculture, both Agriculture and Justice, so that they can present a joint, and yourselves, so that you can present a joint program of action to us with timeframes, because we don't want a project to be a permanent program of the department. A project must be a project. We are going to be including that as part of our program when we come back after recess to try and assist to speed up that particular program process. We would also be, we do take note of the fact that these budget cuts have got serious implication on the department and also on the legal aid board in particular, but more importantly, that they affect the indigent people much more negatively. It's something that we will be raising in our debate and also in our engagement with National Treasury. That we did take note of the comforting approach of Mr. Ne, but our anxiety remain that you might not have felt it that much this year, but you are going to feel it in the outer years. So we are concerned because that will have a serious effect on even on social cohesion. If a lot of people who are tried and cannot be properly represented or even be represented, that would have a serious consequences for our constitutional democracy. So these are some of the issues that we'll be raising even in our engagements and our debates, because we are really with you that these budget cuts for yourselves are dire. As much as we understand the reasoning behind them, and we understand that the economy is very bad, and that the National Treasury must find money somewhere, so it has to cut. But we do think that we have to put up a case for legal aid, that you are quickly reaching a situation where it is just going to be unmanageable to have these cuts, and as deep as they are in the proper functioning of the justice system, because we are an important cog in this justice value chain. Thank you very much, Judge. And I saw that the Deputy Chair is also around. I think he's hiding himself somewhere. Thank you very much to the whole team of the legal aid. You remain the shining example even under difficult conditions. Continue to soldier on, but we are there to also to assist.
Thank you very much.
No, I
okay, thanks.
Just wanted to say this.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We can now leave.
Yes.
Thank you. Very well. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Members.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair and members.
Members, can we have 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So, no, thank you very much, members. I know it's very late. I will be just.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
ending something.
I don't think it will be necessary for now, but let me, with the committee secretariat, revise the program and bring back the revised program for adoption. Then we will see. We'll take it from there.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jale.
No, Chair, I'm covered. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. No, thank you very much, members, and to the staff and everybody who has been with us. It has been a very long day. Tomorrow is also going to be quite long. We'll start at 9:30 with the Department of Justice, followed by NPA. We know NPA can also be long. So we might finish around 5 or 5:30 tomorrow. But we're starting at 9:30.
Yay!
Thank you very much. The meeting is done. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you,
Chair. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.